I never anticipated encountering such a scene. It was only another day after school, and I believed I would have the home to myself, but what I discovered through my stepmother's ajar door rendered me speechless. Surprised by an unforeseen occurrence, my entire universe transformed abruptly. The subsequent events altered everything. Between us lies an irrevocable moment as I recount the events that transpired into an unforgettable night. I wish to convey that all occurrences were consensual. It may appear implausible. Nevertheless, it is the real truth. Upon returning home from school that day, I felt exhausted from hours of courses, and the house was unsettlingly silent. Upon entering, the only sound was the gentle hum of the refrigerator, while golden rays of late afternoon sunlight illuminated the hardwood flooring, creating a serene and tranquil ambience. I was certain I was solitary. I slung my heavy backpack onto the couch, intending to procure a bite and relax briefly before others returned home. But as I approached the kitchen, something halted me abruptly. The sound was faint yet distinct. I froze, uncertain of what I was perceiving. It was gentle, akin to a subdued murmur or whisper, yet it has a distinct quality, and private and personal essence that elicited a tingling sensation of uneasiness on my skin. I paid closer attention. Attempting to ascertain the source, I found the sound, albeit not loud, to have an intriguing quality that captured me. Stealthily and with extreme care, I advanced down the corridor. My footsteps were silent on the floor as I neared the origin of the sound upon reaching Sophia's chamber. I observed that her door was slightly open, allowing me to glimpse the edge of the bed and a little of the room beyond. I saw I ought not to look. Every instinct urged me to turn and depart, yet an irresistible curiosity compelled me toward that door before I could restrain myself. I observed through the fissure. At that moment, I beheld her, my stepmother. Aurora reclined on the bed, her back slightly arched, eyes closed in a state of unadulterated ecstasy. For an extended duration, I was rendered immobile by astonishment. I stood there, breathless, my throat constricted as I observed her, my thoughts rushing to comprehend what I was witnessing. She was engaging in self-stimulation, her fingers gliding gently and regularly as quiet sighs emanated from her lips. The image triggered a profound jolt within me. As I encountered the unknown, my pulse accelerated. My pulse raced violently in my chest as a surge of warmth enveloped me. I saw the necessity to retreat silently, and to feign ignorance of the situation, yet I remained immobile. I was immobilized, my gaze fixed upon her. Each subtle movement she executed elicited a profound response within me. The Aurora was exquisite, very gorgeous at that time. Her body exhibited an easy, innate elegance just as I was on the verge of compelling myself to look away. She awakened her gaze. I experienced a moment of terror, convinced I had been discovered. Yet, rather than responding with astonishment or fury, she only gazed at me. The glance was kind and welcoming, devoid of surprise or shame, accompanied by a slow, smoldering look that caused my skin to quiver and my breath to falter as she murmured in a low voice. She warmly invited me in, and for a second, I believed I could have fabricated the experience. However, as I remained still, she offered the same enticing grin and reiterated the invitation with greater insistence. My legs appeared to operate autonomously, gradually transporting me into the room. My heart raced increasingly with each step. A peculiar amalgamation of anxiety and excitement enveloped me as I stood by the bed, gazing down at it. I sensed the tension between us, dense and tangible in the atmosphere. Sophia. Initially, she remained silent, only observing me with her penetrating, smoldering gaze that appeared to perceive my innermost thoughts. I swallowed with difficulty, attempting to articulate, although no words emerged from my lips. Experienced dryness, and my thoughts were disordered. She appeared unaffected by my quiet. She extended her hand, grasping mine. Her touch was gentle yet assertive as she drew me nearer. My pulse raced, and a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. But there was also a sensation akin to exhilaration and expectation as I seated myself near her on the edge of the bed. Aurora maintained her grip. Instead, She directed my hand slowly. As my hand traversed the gentle contour of her hip, the warmth of her flesh permeated my fingertips, and my breath faltered as I sensed her palm above mine, guiding me with measured, intentional motions. I could perceive her pulse beneath her skin and the gentle rise and fall of her chest as she inhaled and exhaled. She murmured to me, her voice almost perceptible yet imbued with love that caused my heart to hurt. She instructed me not to. I hesitated to relax, and I nodded, uncertain whether I felt more anxious or exhilarated. Her fingers interlaced with mine, directing and instructing me. We synchronized flawlessly. Each touch elicited a surge of energy within me, and I sensed our connection intensifying with each moment. It was beyond the physical. It was something deeper, something profound and genuine. The moment elongated as the external world dissipated, leaving only the two of us engaged in an experience that seemed both illicit and appropriate. As time appeared to decelerate, each breath and contact endured indefinitely as the tension between us escalated to a breaking point. Aurora drew me nearer, her body preconcurrently with mine. I sensed the heat of her flesh, the warmth of her breath on my neck, and the caress of her lips, gently on my ear as she spoke once again, her tone gentle and breathy. She implored me to remain, her tone imbued with a subtle urgency that caused my pulse to race. She seemed reluctant for me to leave, could not have departed even if I desired to. The barrier between us was too formidable. The connection was profound. We were inseparably entwined. This moment was of paramount importance. Itched my lips closer to hers. Her breath warmed my skin, and time appeared to freeze, the world pausing as we teetered on the brink of an undeniable moment. The atmosphere between us was laden with suspense, a tension that elicited a shiver down my spine, just as I believed the moment would overwhelm Sophia. Gently leaned forward, her lips touched lightly against mine, transmitting a wave of warmth through me. It was first mild, initially timid, as if we were gauging the situation. Her kiss intensified, her lips pressing more forcefully against mine, while her hand continued to direct me, revealing her desires. We both want a slow, sensitive kiss imbued with an intense yet mild passion. In that moment, it seemed as though all we had repressed was being released, with each touch, breath, and heartbeat converging as we ultimately succumbed to the tension that had accumulated between us. We remained in that embrace for what seemed like an eternity, oblivious to the world beyond. I sensed Sophia's body quaking, gently opposed to mine, the delicate sound of her respiration permeating the space between us. Ultimately, she retracted somewhat, her forehead pressed against mine, her eyes partially closed as she regained her breath, perceived the slightest indication of a grin. With a sense of contentment on her lips that caused my heart to swell, she muttered, inquiring if I was well. Her voice was scarcely perceptible yet imbued with warmth that instilled a sense of safety and caring. Nodded, incapable of articulating words. She grinned once more, her fingertips grazing gently through my hair as she inclined towards me. Once again, her lips caressing gently against my cheek before retracting. The space was entirely suffused with a lovely, tranquil serenity. The previously existing stress was supplanted by a gentle, radiant serenity. We were silent for an extended while, simply sitting together. Our breaths synchronized, gradually normalizing the heat between us, softening into a more intimate warmth. Aurora rested her head on my shoulder, and I encircled her with my arm. We sat in, drawing her closer, the diminishing light of the afternoon and the subdued noises of the home enveloping us. Whatever this connection was, it was novel, delicate and entirely unforeseen, yet at that moment nothing else had significance. The only thing that mattered was our being together, having an experience that seemed extraordinarily unique, transcending our prior imaginings, and for the moment that sufficed. The peaceful familiarity between us seems to intensify with each instant that elapses. The sunlight streaming through the window was diminishing, throwing a gentle amber hue across the room, yet everything within felt vibrant and animated. The gravity of the recent events lingered in the atmosphere. Despite our silence, it felt as if we were both anticipating something. Suspended in this unresolved tension, I saw Sophia's body relax somewhat against mine. Nonetheless, her closer proximity and her hand delicately resting on my thigh indicated that whatever had begun between us was far from concluded. Nevertheless, my heart continued to race, a peculiar amalgamation of exhilaration and anxiety surging within me. I was acutely aware of her presence. The presence of her gentle breaths, the warmth of her flesh on mine, and the lingering aroma of her perfume filled the air as she inclined her head slightly. Lips grazing the side of my neck, eliciting thrills along my spine. The contact was little, yet it created an inside flame that evolved into a smoldering hunger. I briefly shut my eyes, allowing the sensation to envelop me before directing my gaze towards her. Her eyes locked with me, revealing a distinct change in her sight. There was an intensity and darkness there. The prior softness remained, yet behind it, I saw a hunger that mirrored my own. Aurora remained silent. However, the gentle patterns her fingers made on my knee sent all the information I required, prompting me to lean forward. Seizing her lips once again, this time without hesitancy or timid exploration of limits, the kiss was profound and fervent, as if the suppressed need we both harbored had finally been unleashed, and her hands ascended my breast. Her fingers entwined in the fabric of my shirt as she drew me nearer. I sensed her body reacting to mine. The delicate pressure of her contours on me disoriented my senses. This encounter felt illicit, which only heightened its allure. Her status as my stepmother, a figure who had perpetually remained elusive, established the link. The dynamics between us appear increasingly perilous. Was unable to restrain my desire for further fulfillment. Sophia's hands grasped the back of my neck, drawing me closer as she reclined on the bed. Against the cushions as she directed me, I succumbed to the attraction between us. Overwhelmed by its power, I soon found myself levitating. My arms supported me as I gazed down at her, my breath shallow. Rose gasped shallowly, her chest heaving, and dropped swiftly, her eyes fixed on me. At that moment, the tension between us was tangible, and she extended her fingers upward, softly outlining the contour of my jaw before pulling me down once again. Our lips engaged in another fervent kiss. This time, her hands traversed my back and shoulders, drawing me further nearer until no distance remained between us. The warmth emanating from Sophia's body was intense. I could perceive her heartbeat. As we raced at comparable speeds, the rhythm pulsated against my chest. I lowered my hand along her side, sensing the gentle contour of her waist beneath my fingertips. Upon reaching the hem of her shirt, I paused momentarily, uncertain whether I was overstepping boundaries, but she did not withdraw. Rather, she arched her back, gently prompting her to make contact with her body. Was replying to me in a manner that unequivocally conveyed her desires. My finger glided beneath the cloth, and as I moved my hand along the warm smoothness of her flesh, I heard her gentle gasp. A sound ignited a renewed surge of warmth through my olive hands entwined in my hair, drawing me nearer as she intensified the kiss, her lips slightly apart. Her subtle invitation to experience her essence was intoxicating, and I could sense the tension in her body via her movements. Her every touch, imbued with a sense of urgency, rendered it difficult underneath me. Our thoughts were solely consumed by one another, as every obstacle between us disintegrated, yielding to the long-simmering longing that left no possibility for retreat, burdened by the gravity of that knowledge. Suspended in the atmosphere, yet neither of us appeared to be concerned. The only thing of significance was this. This relationship is unequivocal at now. The attraction that united us, Sophia's hands, were omnipresent, delineating the contours of my shoulders, arms, and chest, as though she was insatiable, and I had the same sensation. The more I caressed her, the more my desire became, amplifying the intensity of the experience. Was nearly insurmountable. It felt as though we had restrained ourselves for an extended period, and now that the floodgates had been released, there was no halting the deluge that engulfed us. As we were apart, she quietly groaned against my lips, her fingers gripping my hair tightly. As she rubbed her body against mine, The sound elicited a renewed wave of need. I was unable to satisfy my need for her. Her flavor, her aroma, the sensation of her under me. Every aspect of my being was ablaze. I realized that retreat was impossible. I momentarily withdrew. My gaze sought hers, as if I wanted confirmation that she remained there in this experience. I still want it as intensely as before. However, her gaze conveyed everything. I required assurance of unequivocal certainty. There are no doubts, simply the persistent thirst that has been from the first, compelling us further in silence as Aurora extended her hand toward me. Once more, her fingers curled inward. She tugged at my shirt with a gentle, almost imploring urgency, and as our lips connected again, I found myself wholly yielding to the moment, relinquishing all doubt and anxiety, and succumbing to the passion that had been intensifying between us since my entrance into that room. The tension between us was palpable. Each touch and kiss drew us nearer to the precipice. Her body undulated beneath mine, her hands traversing my skin as if she were insatiable for the sound of her frantic gasps permeating the room, inciting my fervor. We were entwined with one another now. Fully engulfed by the passion that had seized us, there was no retreat. I sensed her fingers glide. Her hand glided down my chest, inducing shivers as she drew me closer. Her body curved beneath mine, almost pleading for further attention, which I provided. Each touch, each kiss, each whispered phrase immerses us further into the moment. Only the two of us remained, enveloped in a self-constructed reality. The overwhelming intensity was nearly unbearable. The tension between us escalated to a critical level as we hovered on the brink of a profound essence, something more, yet we were not prepared to relinquish it just yet. Remained suspended on the precipice, experiencing each caress and kiss as the fervor between us intensified to the point of potential eruption. I sensed Aurora quivering beneath me, her breath shallow and erratic as she grasped me tightly. Her body pressed against mine in a manner that disoriented me, and I was aware that she perceived it as well. Similarly, the identical intolerable tension and urgent need for liberation persisted. However, we had not arrived at that point. Indeed, we lingered on the precipice, prolonging the moment and allowing the suspense to escalate to an almost unbearable level. The room was packed with noise, of our fervent groans, our murmured names, and the subtle intensity of our motions as we surrendered to the passion that had been brewing between us for an extended period. This moment was flawless, this connection between us, and as I embraced her, our bodies synchronized in perfect unison, and I realized that nothing would ever be the same thereafter. We had transgressed a boundary and entered into the prohibited, something perilous, although I was indifferent. At that moment, when we teetered on the brink of something greater, the only thing that mattered was Aurora's kiss. The sensation of her under me as we became entirely engrossed in one another and as we ultimately relinquished control, yielding to the overwhelming intensity, I recognized that this was but the commencement. Regardless of what followed and the potential repercussions, I was prepared to confront them. In that moment, as we embraced in the diminishing daylight, I realized that everything had transformed, and I would not desire it differently. As the fervor of our passion began to wane, Aurora and I lay entwined, our breathing steadily normalizing. The room was silent. Only the gentle rustling of sheets remains. As we moved nearer to one another, the final rays of sunshine had dissipated, enveloping us in the subdued illumination of twilight. I observed her intently, noting every detail, the blush of her cheeks, the gentle luster in her eyes, and the manner in which her hair cascaded over the pillow. A portion of me remained incredulous about the recent events, yet the warmth of her body against mine was irrefutable. "What now?" I muttered, somewhat apprehensive, to disrupt the established quiet. Aurora stroked her fingertips along us. My jawline, accompanied by a subtle smile, as she gently remarked, "We will figure it out." We understood that this would not be straightforward. Numerous complexities and possible implications existed. However, as we lay entwined in each other's embrace, those apprehensions seemed far and trivial. We conversed for hours that night, our voices subdued and personal in the darkness. We communicated our apprehensions, aspirations, and yearnings. It was peculiar how something that ought to have seemed so inappropriate but did not seem to be the most instinctive action. In the subsequent weeks, we established a new pattern that we approached with caution. Certainly, in the presence of others, we upheld our customary stepmother-stepchild dynamics. However, in private instances, covert glances and discreet touches suggested our clandestine affair. The experience was not consistently seamless. While sailing, we experienced moments of remorse and apprehension, questioning whether we were committing a significant error upon hearing my father's key in the lock for the first time following our union. We both were nearly startled. However, we learned to be subtle and value our private times without allowing them to intrude into our public life. Approximately 1 month after that initial occasion, Aurora and I were seated on the couch, seeing a film. My father frequently worked late. As the titles concluded, Aurora directed her gaze towards me. Her demeanor was grave. A conversation was necessary. Regarding the future, she articulated her thoughts. Calm yet resolute, my heart raced. What do you mean by her taking my hand? Her thumb traced circles on my palm, indicating that our connection is beyond the physical realm, at least for me. A sense of comfort enveloped me as I expressed that it is not only physical for me. I believe I am falling in love with you, Sophia. Her magnificent smile illuminated her face as she leaned in to kiss me. Gently, she murmured against my lips that she believes she is also falling in love with me. However, such acknowledgement introduced a new array of obstacles. We both recognized that the revelation of our relationship would inflict distress and bewilderment on individuals in our vicinity. The burden of concealing this secret from my father increasingly affected both of us over time. Our bond intensified. We developed a nonverbal communication to comprehend one another's wants and wishes in an unprecedented manner. It was both exciting and daunting. There were near misses, such as when my closest friend visited suddenly and almost discovered us in a compromising situation, or the evening my father returned home early, necessitating a hasty retreat. It appears we were only engaged in a casual dialogue. Each near miss heightened our caution, although it also prompted us to contemplate our ability to sustain this pace. Over time, the persistent anxiety of vigilance was adversely affecting us, and a particularly narrow escape precipitated our inaugural significant conflict. Emotions were up, and we both spoke words we did not intend. I exited abruptly, spending the night driving purposelessly about the town. My thoughts are a tumult of uncertainty and pain, yet with the dawn, I discovered myself once more at our threshold. Aurora opened the door before I could even knock, her eyes wide. Eyes ringed in crimson following a night devoid of slumber. Silently, we embraced, each of us expressing remorse through our tears, acknowledging that the terrible conflict had fortified us. We recognized that our possession was worthy of defense. As we began to safeguard, our conversations increased. We contemplated our future and the potential implications of making our connection permanent. We were aware of it. It would not be simple. There would be astonishment, despite potential disappointment and perhaps even fury from our closest companions. When we convened to plan and dream, I had an unprecedented sense of hope. As months elapsed, our closeness intensified. We mastered the art of leading a dual existence, portraying responsible individuals as nurturing stepmothers in public while being fervent lovers in secret, a reality we both acknowledged could not endure indefinitely as our 1-year anniversary neared. 1 year has elapsed since that pivotal afternoon when I encountered Aurora. We resolved that it was time to cease evasion and confront the repercussions of our decisions. We dedicated weeks to strategizing the announcement, meticulously considering every aspect. Then, on a tranquil Sunday afternoon, with quaking palms and accelerated heartbeats, we seated ourselves with my father to disclose the truth. The ensuing talk was among the most challenging of my life. It was marked by tears, raised voices, and instances of profound stillness. However, as I grasped Sophia's hand firmly, I was assured we were making the correct decision. The path forward would be challenging. We needed to reconstruct bridges and restore trust. However, as we confronted the future collectively, I was inevitably reminded of the past. One afternoon a year prior, at a singular instant, everything had transformed, and despite the myriad trials and suffering, I would not alter a single aspect because that moment had guided me to this love that was beyond all expectations. As I gazed at Aurora, perceiving the same love mirrored in her eyes, I recognized that whatever was ahead, we would confront it together. Together,